This is Residence 104.4 FM. Flipping marvellous. How are you? I'm Nick Hennegan, and it's time for another slice of literary London. And we're kind of going up north a little bit for our extravaganza today, because we are celebrating, well, within a few weeks actually, the birth and the death of Mrs. Arthur Bell Nicholls, also known as Charlotte Bronte.
Preference. Not in scorn do I reprove thee, not in pride thy vows I waive, but believe I could not love thee wert thou prince and I a slave. These, then, are thine oaths of passions, this thy tenderness for me? Judged even by thine own confession, thou art steeped in perfidy. Having vanquished, thou wouldst leave me, thus I read thee long ago. Therefore dared I not deceive thee, even with friendship's gentle show. Therefore, with impassive coldness have I ever met thy gaze, though full oft with daring boldness thou thine eyes to mine didst raise. Why that smile? Thou now art deeming this my coldness all untrue, but a mask of frozen seeming, hiding secret fires from view. Touch my hand, thou self-deceiver, nay, be calm, for I am so. Does it burn? Does my lip quiver? Has mine eye a troubled glow? Canst thou call a moment's colour to my forehead, to my cheek? Canst thou tinge their tranquil pallor with one flattering feverish streak? Am I marble? What? No woman could so calm before thee stand. Nothing living, sentient, human could so coldly take thy hand. Yes, a sister might, a mother. My good will is sisterly. Dream not, then, I strive to smother fires that inly burn for thee. Rave not, rage not, wrath is fruitless, fury cannot change my mind. I but deem the feeling rootless, which so whirls in passion's wind. Can I love? Oh, deeply, truly, warmly, fondly, but not thee. And my love is answered duly with an equal energy. Wouldst thou see the rival? Hasten. Draw that curtain soft aside. Look, where yon thick branches chasten noon, with shades of eventide, in that glade, where foliage blending forms a green arch overhead, sits thy rival, thoughtful bending o'er a stand with papers spread, motionless, his fingers plying that untired, unresting pen, time and tide unnoticed flying. There he sits, the first of men. Man of conscience, man of reason, stern, perchance, but ever just. Foe to falsehood, wrong, and treason, honour's shield, and virtue's trust. Worker, thinker, firm defender of heaven's truth, man's liberty. Soul of iron, proof to slander. rock where founders tyranny. Fame he seeks not, but full surely she will seek him in his home. This I know, and wait securely for the atoning hour to come. To that man my faith is given. Therefore, soldier, cease to sue. While God reigns in earth and heaven, I to him will still be true.
And that, of course, was Charlotte Bronte and Preference. Obviously, she's sort of known for her novels, but she was quite a good poet as well. And we're going to be playing one or two of her poems during this edition of Literary London on Resonance 104.4 FM. You can also catch us on bohemianbritain.com, which is my kind of, I don't know what to call it, it's just sort of a blog. There's videos on there, these radio shows go on there. Bit of a mess. Do reviews. My production of 2 has just opened at the Tabard Theatre in Chiswick in London, W4, and there's a review of that about to go on, which I didn't write myself. It's a bit difficult, isn't it? You know, writing theatre reviews on a blog, your blog, when it's your show that you're looking at. But I asked an acquaintance to do a review. I can tell you it's quite good. Was she going to do a bad review? Who knows? But you'll be able to see that soon. And other reviews, Edinburgh Festival shows, local theatre happenings in London, what I'm up to really in terms of producing stuff. So it's a bit of a mess, but yeah, check it out. Anyway, have a look. bohemianbritain.com. Also, if you'd like to get in touch, if you've got an event happening, then as always, just drop me an email. It's probably the easiest. I don't get to the studio that much now, so I must have piles of mail. Or maybe just no one's writing to me. Anyway, not to worry. Email's probably the best. radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. Also, if you've got any requests, we've got another request show coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I collect all the requests. People will ask for specific poems or stories, or they'll send their own in, of course. If you've written something, then send it in. Record it on your phone or however you want to record it, and send in a sound file as well. And if it's okay, we'll give it a blast. We'll play it out for you. I'm in an hour about doing another thing. I don't know if you remember it. It'll be in the archive of Resonance. Airplay, it was called Airplay, where we took 6 brand new radio scripts and we workshopped them in Acton, and then people voted for their favourite. And we were trying to get funding to make the final winning script into a complete production. The funding didn't arrive, but we had a lot of fun getting to that stage. And I'm going to try it again. I think Airplay 2 is on the horizon. Perhaps over the summer or maybe in the autumn. So if you're a radio writer, then prepare thyself. I think we went 30-minute scripts, but I'll tell you more about that as we go. So yes, if you're up to anything, then do get in touch. radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. But we're celebrating Charlotte Bronte. She was born... She was. You knew that, didn't you? Yes. She was born on the 21st of April in 1816 in Thornton in Yorkshire. The right side of the Pennines. Don't go there, Nick. Don't go there. Don't go there. So my dad he's Irish but brought up in Leeds. You know the Wars of the Roses? I'm thinking of a Richard III adaptation at the moment. It's all going on in my head. Oh, yeah, I mean, you can't see it, but it's all going on in here. Anyway, Charlotte Bronte, bless her. She was born, 21st of April, 1816. Thornton in Yorkshire. She sadly died on the 31st of March 1855 in Haworth, of course, in Yorkshire. The Bronte family were of course known for living up there. She's perhaps most famous for Jane Eyre, which was written in 1847, a story of a woman in conflict with her natural desires and social conditions. And in a sense, I think it's fair to say most references talk about that novel giving a sort of new truthfulness to Victorian fiction. But she also wrote Shirley in 1849, and she wrote Villette in 1853. So she's sort of known for her books. But she also wrote some fantastic poetry as well. And if you've ever been to Haworth, you'll kind of get the vision of this next poem from Charlotte Bronte. It's called The Wood.
But 2 miles more, and then we rest, where there is still an hour of day, and long the brightness of the west will light us on our devious way. Sit then a while here in this wood, so total is the solitude, we safely may delay. These massive roots afford a seat, which seems for weary travellers made. There rest. The air is soft and sweet in this sequestered forest glade, and there are scents of flowers around, the evening dew draws from the ground. How soothingly they spread. Yes, I was tired, but not at heart. Not that beats full of sweet content, for now I have my natural part of action with adventure blent. Cast forth on the wide world with thee, and all my once waste energy to weighty purpose bent. Yet sayest thou, spies around us roam, our aims are termed conspiracy. Haply no more our English home an anchorage for us may be. That there is risk our mutual blood may redden in some lonely wood the knife of treachery. Yet sayest thou, spies around us roam, our aims are termed conspiracy. Haply no more our English home an anchorage for us may be. That there is risk our mutual blood may redden in some lonely wood the knife of treachery? Sayest thou that where we lodge each night, in each lone farm or lonelier hall of Norman peer, ere morning light suspicion must as duly fall, as day returns such vigilance, presides and watches over France, such rigour governs all? I fear not, William. Dost thou fear? So that the knife does not divide, it may be ever hovering near. I could not tremble at thy side, and strenuous love like mine for thee is buckler strong gainst treachery, and turns its stab aside. I am resolved that thou shalt learn to trust my strength as I trust thine. I am resolved our souls shall burn with equal steady mingling shine. Part of the field is conquered now, our lives in the same channel flow, along the self-same line. And while no groaning storm is heard, thou seem'st content it should be so. But soon as comes a warning word of danger straight thine anxious brow bends over me a mournful shade, as doubting if my powers are made to ford the floods of woe. No, then it is my spirit swells, and drinks with eager joy the air of freedom where at last it dwells, chartered a common task to share with thee. And then it stirs alert, and pants to learn what menaced hurt demands for thee its care. Remember I have crossed the deep, and stood with thee on deck, to gaze on waves that rose in threatening heap, while stagnant lay a heavy gaze, dimly confusing sea with sky, and baffling even the pilot's eye, intent to thread the maze. Of rocks on Bretagne's dangerous coast, and find a way to steer our band to the one point obscure which, lost, flung us as victims on the strand. All elsewhere gleam the Gaelic sword, and not a weary could be moored along the guarded land. I feared not then, I fear not now. The interest of each stirring scene wakes a new sense, a welcome glow in every nerve and bounding vein, alike on turbid Channel sea, or in still wood of Normandy, I feel as born again. The rain descended that wild morn, when anchoring in the cove at last, our band all weary and forlorn, ashore like wave-worn sailors cast sought for a sheltering roof in vain, and scarce could scanty food obtain to break their morning fast. Thou didst thy crust with me divide, thou didst thy cloak around me fold, and sitting silent by thy side, I ate the bread in peace untold. Given kindly from thy hand, 'twas sweet as costly fare or princely treat on royal plate of gold. Sharp blew the sleet upon my face, and rising wild the gusty wind drove on those thundering waves apace. Our crew so late had left behind. But spite of frozen shower and storm, so close to thee my heart beat warm, and tranquil slept my mind. So now, nor footsore nor oppressed with walking all this August day, I taste a heaven in this brief rest, this gypsy halt beside the way. England's wild flowers are fair to view, like balm is England's summer dew, like gold her sunset ray. But the white violets growing here are sweeter than I yet have seen, and ne'er did dew so pure and clear distil on forest mosses green, as now, called forth by summer heat, perfumes our cool and fresh retreat these fragrant limes between. That sunset, look beneath the boughs, over the copse beyond the hills, how soft yet deep and warm it glows, and heaven with rich suffusion fills. With hues where still the opal's tint, its gleam of poisoned fire is blent, where flame through azure thrills. Depart we now, for fast will fade that solemn splendour of decline, and deep must be the aftershade, as stars alone tonight will shine. No moon is destined pale to gaze on such a day's vast phoenix blaze, a day in fires decayed. There hand in hand we tread again the mazes of this varying wood, and soon amid a cultured plain, girt in with fertile solitude, we shall our resting place descry, marked by one roof tree, towering high above a farmstead rude. Refreshed ere long with rustic fare, we'll seek a couch of dreamless ease. Courage will guard thy heart from fear, and love give mine divinest peace. Tomorrow brings more dangerous toil, and through its conflict and turmoil we'll pass as God shall please.
Ah, that's lovely, isn't it? That's The Wood by Charlotte Bronte, read there by Gisela Rowe. Charlotte Bronte's father was, of course, Patrick Bronte, born in 1777. He passed away in 1861. He was an Anglican clergyman, also a bit like my dad, born in Ireland. He changed his name actually from the more commonplace Brunty to Bronte. Bronte as in Brunty. After he served in several parishes, he moved with his wife, Maria Branwell Bronte, and their 6 small children to Haworth in the Yorkshire Moors, in 1820, having been awarded a rectorship there. Soon after, Mrs. Bronte and the 2 eldest children, Maria and Elizabeth, died, leaving the father to care for the remaining 3 girls, Charlotte, Emily and Anne, and a boy, Branwell. Their upbringing was aided by an aunt, Elizabeth Branwell, who left Cornwall, which is where she was from, and took up residence with the family in Haworth to help out. In 1824, Charlotte and Emily, together with their elder sisters before their deaths, attended the clergy daughter school at Cowan Bridge near Kirkby, Lonsdale, in Lancashire, the right side of the Pennines. Don't go there, Nick! Don't go there! The fees at the school were low, the food was unattractive, and the discipline very harsh. I don't think they had a very nice time. Charlotte condemned the school long afterwards in Jane Eyre under a thin disguise of Lowood Institution. It was perhaps exaggerated slightly, but its principal, the Reverend William Carus Wilson, has been accepted as the counterpart of Mr. Brocklehurst in the novel. Charlotte and Emily returned home to Haworth in June 1825, and for more than 5 years the Bronte children learned and played there, writing and telling romantic tales for one another and inventing imaginative games played out at home or, of course, on the desolate moor, which was to be made very famous by the Wuthering Heights. In 1831, Charlotte was sent to a school at Roe Head near Huddersfield, where she stayed a year and made some lasting friendships. In fact, her correspondence with one of her friends, Ellen Nussey, continued until her death, and it's provided much of the current knowledge of Charlotte's life, that correspondence and the friendship. In 1832, she went home to teach her sisters, but in 1835 she returned to Roe Head as a teacher this time. She wished to improve her family's position, and that was the only outlet that offered her enough satisfaction. She was a very energetic woman by all counts. Branwell, her brother, moreover, was to start on his career as an artist, and apparently it became necessary to supplement the family resources. Yes, well, fellow writers, don't we know about that? Yes. Well, Charlotte sussed it as well. The work that she took on at the school was not really to Charlotte's temperament, and she fell into what was called in those days ill health and melancholia, and in the summer of 1838 terminated her engagement. at the place. I'm guessing she was depressed. But in 1839, Charlotte declined a proposal of marriage from the Reverend Henry Nussey, her friend's brother. Some months later, she declined another proposal from another young clergyman. At the same time, Charlotte's ambition to make the practical best of her talents and the need to pay Bramwell's debts urged her to spend some months as a governess at Upperwood House in Rawdon. Roden, I think that is. Bramwell's talents for writing and painting and his good classical scholarship and his social charm, and sort of everyone expected he'd do really rather well. But he was described as fundamentally unstable, weak-willed and intemperate. He went from job to job and sadly took refuge in alcohol and opium. Meanwhile, his sisters had planned to open a school together, which their aunt agreed to finance. And in February 1842, Charlotte and Emily went to Brussels as pupils to improve their qualifications in French and to acquire some German. The talent displayed by both brought them to the notice of a fine teacher, a German teacher. And after a brief trip home upon the death of her aunt, Charlotte returned to Brussels as a pupil teacher, stayed there in 1843, but was again a bit fed up. So they spent quite a bit of time in Brussels, working things up, as they did. In 1844, Charlotte attempted to start a school in the parsonage itself in Haworth, but as her father's failing sight precluded him being left alone, so she thought she'd work from home. Prospectuses were issued, but no pupils were attached to distant Haworth. In the autumn of 1845, Charlotte came across some poems by Emily, and it was that discovery that led to the publication of a joint volume of poems by Currer, Ellis and Acton Bell in 1846, or Charlotte, Emily and Anne. The pseudonyms were assumed to preserve secrecy and avoid the special treatment that they believed reviewers accorded to women. The book was issued at their own expense. It's called, self-publishing, yes. And it received few reviews and only 2 copies were sold. But nevertheless, a way had opened to them. And they were already trying to place the 3 novels they had written. Charlotte failed to place The Professor a Tale, but had, however, nearly finished Jane Eyre, an autobiography, begun in August 1846 when she was in Manchester staying with her father, who'd gone there for an eye operation. When Smith, Elder and Company, the publishers, declined The Professor, they declared themselves willing to consider a 3-volume novel with more action and excitement in it. She completed and submitted it at once. Jane Eyre was accepted, published less than 8 weeks later, that was in 1847, and had an immediate success far greater than that of the books that her sisters published the same year, so more than 2 copies. The months that followed were tragic ones. Bramwell died in September 1848, Emily in December, and Anne in May 1849. Charlotte completed Shirley, a Tale, in the Empty Parsonage, and it appeared in October. In the following year, Charlotte went 3 times to London as guest of her publisher. There she met the novelist William Makepeace Thackeray and sat for a portrait by George Richmond. She stayed in 1851 with the writer Harriet Martineau and also visited her future biographer Elizabeth Gaskell in Manchester and entertained her at Haworth. Villette was published in January 1853. Meanwhile, in 1851, she declined a 3rd offer of marriage, that time from James Taylor, a member of Elder Smith and Company, the publishers. Her father's curate, Arthur Bell Nichols, also an Irishman, was her 4th suitor. It took some months to win her father's consent, but eventually they got it. She said yes, and they were married on the 29th of June, 1854 in Haworth Church. They wisely spent their honeymoon in Ireland and then returned to Haworth, where her husband had pledged himself to continue as a curate to her father. He didn't share his wife's intellectual life so much, but she was happy to be loved for herself and to take up her duties as his wife. She began another book, Emma, of which some pages remain. Her pregnancy, however, was accompanied by what was called exhausting sickness, and she passed away in 1855. But, as we've seen, her poetry survives to this day.
The letter. What is she writing? Watch her now. How fast her fingers move. How eagerly her youthful brow is bent in thought above. Her long curls dropping shade the light. She puts them quick aside, nor knows that band of crystals bright, her hasty touch untied. It slips adown her silken dress, falls glittering at her feet. Unmarked it falls, for she no less pursues her labour sweet. The very loveliest hour that shines is in that deep blue sky. The golden sun of June declines, it has not caught her eye. The cheerful lawn, an unclosed gate, the white road far away, in vain for her light footsteps wait, she comes not forth today. There is an open door of glass close by that lady's chair. From thence to slopes of mossy grass descends a marble stair. Tall plants of bright and spicy bloom around the threshold grow. Their leaves and blossoms shade the room from that sun's deepening glow. Why does she not a moment glance between the clustering flowers and mark in heaven the radiant dance of evening's rosy hours? Oh, look again. Still fixed her eye, unsmiling, earnest, still, and fast her pen and fingers fly, urged by her eager will. Her soul is in the absorbing task. To whom then both she write? Nay, watch her still more closely. Ask her own eyes' serious light, where do they turn, as now her pen hangs o'er the unfinished line? Whence fell the tearful gleam that then did in their dark spheres shine? The summer parlour looks so dark when from that sky you turn, and from the expanse of that green park you scarce may aught discern. Yet o'er the piles of porcelain rare, o'er flower stand, couch and vase, sloped, as if leaning on the air, one picture meets the gaze. 'Tis there she turns. You may not see distinct what form defines the clouded mass of mystery yon broad gold frame confines. But look again. Inured to shade, your eyes now faintly trace a stalwart form, a massive head, a firm, determined face. Black Spanish locks, a sunburnt cheek, a brow high, broad and white, where every furrow seems to speak of mind and moral might. Is that her God? I cannot tell. Her eye a moment met th' impending picture, then it fell, darkened and dimmed and wet. A moment more, her task is done, and sealed the letter lies. And now, towards the setting sun, she turns her tearful eyes. Those tears flow over. Wonder not, for by the inscription see in what a strange and distant spot her heart of hearts must be. 3 seas and many a league of land that letter must pass o'er, ere read by him to whose loved hand 'tis sent from England's shore. Remote colonial wilds detain her husband, loved though stern. She, mid that smiling English scene, weeps for his wished return.
The Letter by Charlotte Bronte, who we've been celebrating today, born on the 21st of April 1816 in Thornton in Yorkshire. And that's all we've got time for. Thanks very much for your company. I'll see you next time. As always, get in touch. Follow us on bohemianbritain.com or get in touch at radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. I'm Nick Hennegan, and this is Resonance 104.4 FM.